You guys will recall, right? A while ago, I made a video about simplifying Guilty Gear. And in that video, when we were discussing simplifying Guilty Gear, I said there are things that you can do. Maybe make it so that the weights of the characters are more standardized, right? So there's a small weight, big weight combos or something. Or even just, most combos work on most characters. And standardizing knockdown timing are two things that you could do that would simplify the game, but not make the game super lack depth. And what's interesting to me is that some of those changes that I thought about made it in, but there's way fucking more than I expected. Those things that I mentioned are very small compared to what they actually did. And when I mentioned those things, people were furious with me. So when everybody freaked out about this announcement, I'm not at all surprised. Even something like hold a button to tech or something, right? Even I think I talked about that being something they could do, which is they went even past that. Instead of going from tech with buttons to hold a button to tech, they just went to no tech. There's one thing that's really weird to me about this whole controller scheme and everything. All of the early menus and stuff they show do not look very Gear to me. The style of them, which, I mean, obviously that could change, but I think that this is a really cool diagram in general to teach people. Also, I have no problem with a dash button. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this character select screen as well. I'm covering Kai's face, but you get the point. I think there's a couple of things about it I really like. First of all, I really like this idea right here, the ease of use, and then the categorization of the characters, into these little sections. These are cool, especially on a demo version that people are going to play in the public. This kind of stuff is good because when new people pick characters and stuff in a game, even giving them the option of power, they're like, oh, I like power characters. Who's this little girl that's a power character? Nice, I'm gonna try her, right? I think that this helps for people. How it looks visually is silly, and it doesn't look very Guilty Gear-ish to me. It looks like a mobile game or something, right? The way these cards look over here. Concepts are cool, the aesthetic's a little weird. Even this, I like the way the button selecting works here. You guys say the UI is super placeholder. It's perfectly fine, but we should give some feedback on it. Because if it doesn't change, you guys are gonna feel real silly, aren't you? As silly as Zetaha, who dropped the big Twitch Prime. Thanks very much. People have said a lot of a really bad UIs or placeholder in the past. I hope it's actually the case. So there's another thing that I want to talk about very, very importantly right at the beginning. I have a huge issue immediately. This stage already, these characters blend in way too much. I think that it's very difficult to discern where the characters are from the background in quite a bit of this stage. And I think the lighting and shadows and stuff on the characters is pretty rough. I don't think that that's something that's just particular to this stage either. They're not differentiated enough from the background. The way the shadows are and the way half of Kai's body is dark here on this dark section right here. Early versions of Street Fighter had this issue too. Now it doesn't have that problem at all, but they need to be, I think, differentiated from the background a little bit better. First things first, obviously the UI. I think a lot of people think it looks ugly, right? I think a lot of people look at this UI up here and they just think it looks gross. UI looking gross aside, there are some things about the UI that I think I want to mention first. First and foremost, the way they do round count, I think is reversed. The way the round count is now is that you have 2 hearts. And when you lose a round, you lose a heart. My issue is that since the dawn of time, fighting games have not done round counts like that really, right? It's always you win 2 rounds. You don't have the ability to lose 2 rounds and then die. You know what I mean? Logically, I don't think it makes very much sense. Well, VSAV, you have 2 life bars. Also, it's a very different kind of game. Every other fighting game doesn't work that way. And I think there will be people who look at this and think, oh, it's 2 rounds apiece. This game, you got to play 3 rounds like Tekken. Okay, cool. So I don't like this. The other thing about the life bars is I don't think you should tie stuff to the health bars of the portrait or where the portrait is and then have that move ever. One thing that I will say about this is when we were doing E-League, right, we would track the eyes of the players, right? And every single time a throw landed or a knockdown hit or a combo was going, the players would do this. They would do a pyramid look where they would look up at their health, down to the meter, down to the opponent's life. They would just do this. They would look at these 3 points between everything, right? They're just boom, boom, boom. When you have the life bars moving, when you have the character's portrait moving, when you have information on the screen not being static, it's tough to track in the middle of gameplay. I can't think of a lot of good reasons why the portrait needs to move with it. Now, for some feedback that is very good. You see how they want to pause in the beginning and then there's a blue bar that fills up at the bottom? This is holding down the pause button to pause. That's good to have on already. I like that a lot. That means that it's not just tap the pause and the game freezes already. Good change. I know they've already had that in other Guilty Gears, but it's good that that's already in the game. This is fucking awesome. I think that this is my favorite part about the new gear. Moveless are an opportunity for you to teach players and give them advice. This is the good shit right here. Fuck. Praise be. This is my favorite part about the game. It shows your dust. Dust is a strike attack. Cannot be blocked by a crouching guard. If this move hits as a counter, press up to chain additional attacks. It's so good. Man, it's so good. This right here is that good shit. They got videos on each of the things they're showing. Very useful. So some things about the game already that we have seen. One thing is that the movement seems very Gear. You'll see it as they move around. The movement of the game does not look that different from old Guilty Gears, actually, right? The speed of Soul, the speed of Kai, that looks about what you'd expect from Guilty Gear. But visually, the game is very impressive, obviously, right? This game looks fantastic. As he takes damage, the portrait's moving around. And the burst, whether he has burst gauge available or not. Imagine hitting someone and then trying to see if they have burst or not, but the health bar is moving while you're hitting them, so you're like, ugh. It's already bad that the fact that anybody has to be like, well, it kind of looks like, the fact that it's not clear is bad. It's UI. You're gonna look at it every single game that happens. Look, I get lots of people are saying it's placeholder, it's not real. Okay, but this is an idea that they put in the UI already. It's something that they've tried. They've asked for feedback. Hey everybody, this is placeholder UI, all right? You're not allowed to talk shit about it. I've only been having it for 2 years and some change. Don't talk shit about my placeholder UI. I'm gonna have an overlay any day now. It won't ship like this final. I won't create hundreds of YouTube videos with this current UI, and I also won't thank Catodic for dropping the big 2 months. Thanks very much. They've talked a lot about how they want combo routes to work, and they sort of said stuff like, okay, off the lights, we don't expect you to get big combos. We just expect you to take a little bit of damage, get like a knockdown or whatever, and reset to neutral. And they say the exception to that is when you have meter, right? So we see something like this right here. So RC off the stun dipper, run up, 2H, combo, wall splat, uppercut. This is like what you'd expect from a standard combo, I think, right? It did pretty decent damage. It's relatively short compared to most other gear combos, and you also lose the corner from that. Yeah, I hate this. Why is this so fucking huge? And the beat too. Look at how much of, there's like half the screen is cut off by giant translucent numbers and beat. This too much. There's so much on the screen. For a game that is so beautiful, you know, I don't think you need to put that much stuff on the screen. Come on. This right here, this counter hit, the kind of zoom in and stuff. I think this is probably inspiration from other games that have done stuff like this. I think it's not a bad idea to the way it slows down and stuff. I think it will probably make counter hit confirms very easy. Throw whiffs as well. That's a big change to the system of gear. Talking about the gameplay of this game, one thing that they try to emphasize is that they really want the game to be built around fishing for counter hits, whether that's cranking risk gauge or, you know, just finding counter hits and strings and stuff. They're really focusing on the game on counter hits. And to me, when you think about that, that reminds me a lot of crushing blows in MK, where the main combo routes in MK are all built and designed around landing crushing blows, right? That's how it works. The difference is in gear, you don't have a requirement besides the counter hit to get a big combo. It's just counter hit or you have RC available. And in both games, you have a burst or, you know, whatever to get out of the like a breakaway to get out of the combo. It's like the same kind of concept of a design, right? So I imagine now that baiting a throw or not is going to be a humongous port of this game, but it won't be like baiting a throw in gear. It's going to be like baiting a throw in Street Fighter or baiting a throw in MK, where like staggers are really important. Again, I really dislike the round count. Why even change it, right? Like, why is this something about, like, I feel like this UI, they're like, you know, we're making this brand new Guilty Gear. Now it's all about revolutionizing UI. Why don't we have the UI move this stuff around all over the place? And instead of winning rounds, you don't win rounds, your opponent loses rounds. What? It's so weird. Why? What's the benefit of the change? Like, who gains a lot from this change? He had 2 hearts, but it was close. Look, man, he had 2 hearts, but it was close, though. I didn't get a heart, but, like, I punctured a heart, you know? Another thing about risk gauge, right, is do you guys see the risk gauge on the screen? During this block string, do you see the risk gauge building up? Did you see that? Kai was at full risk gauge, which is... one of the most important things about this game is fishing for counter hits, right? So when he does a block string like this, this is huge. This is one of the most important things about the game. We should be like, oh shit, the risk gauge is out of control. Do you guys even know where it is? It's this very teeny little line right here under Kai's life bar. Like, why is it so hard to see it, you know? You really lose me when you do stuff like that, right? It's like fighting games are great because all the information is just there. You know what I mean? Like the meters are just there, the health bars are just there, whether they have a burst or not is just there. The risk gauge is just a gauge on the screen you can see. And like they're all there. And the fact that it moves around and shit is just like already like, God damn it, why? Why did you do this? Even if the UI, the visual of it is placeholder, they thought to themselves, wouldn't it be cool if as the health goes down, this follows it? You know, that's the part we should talk about. You guys, you can give whatever feedback you want, but that's what I'm saying. We all thought MVCI UI as placeholder. We did, and we also thought the character select was placeholder. We thought BB tags was placeholder. You notice that so far I've not talked too much about the gameplay and how everything, because I just haven't played it. It's hard for me to know. Now, until I play the game, I'm not gonna know too much about how I feel, I think. Game looks slowed down. You know when you see a game the first time and everybody's playing in slow motion because they're learning shit? It doesn't look that much slower to me than regular gear when I see the characters air dash or run. It looks about the same. But I can't tell how much slower or faster the game looks. Like when Soul did IAD, it looked like a Soul IAD to me. When he was running, it looked like Soul running to me, so I can't tell. The damage seems high. Yeah, so it seems like the damage is really high and you don't get anything after. Like Soul Wild Throw did like 30%, but he just spikes you, and that's it. What do I think about negative penalty? I think if you're gonna make Guilty Gear more neutral heavy and try to slow down how often people are getting hits into set play, negative penalty is probably not a good thing to have in the game still. So you say negative penalty needs to be in because it forces aggression, and that's Guilty Gear at its core. This is a very different Guilty Gear at its core, right? Look at this command throw damage. Oh my. But then he throws you full screen. Remember, Potemkin used to be able to safe jump after it. That's like how close he was. That's how advantaged he was.
Oh, this sucks. New neutral.
Right, he puts you back full screen. He doesn't get pressure after it anymore.
Oh, I tried to grab
That looks definitely weird. This is something that I think looks a little weird. Counter hit zoom, and then he cancels it, but then like the tail end of it hits really weird, and then he tries to I think this looks a little disorienting, right? Hydra Dixon coming. There, it's censored. I see one or two people saying GGPO. And by one or two, I mean the entire chat room. All the chat is rollback netcode. So the first question is rollback. Thank you to Ringe for asking it. They don't look happy about this question.
So we are very aware of the voices and how much everyone wants rollback netcode. We are monitoring closely. Everyone inside the team's aware, but we can't say anything at this moment in regards to that.
All good. We are aware.
We are monitoring and aware of rollback. You know, they said they were aware of rollback netcode back when BB Tag was, before it was out, right? Before Frankenstein's Gate dropped the big Twitch Prime. Thanks very much. We're aware and monitoring GGPO. We know it exists, but we can't say anything now. Just say no, it's fair. Does the game have a training mode? Yes or no? You know, it's like they're just asking fair questions. This is what we're going to look at next. This is a big Evernote of the information about the Guilty Gear system mechanics. It's just essentially a translation of a lot of the info that was given away on the Japanese stream. The Japanese stream, they talked a little bit more about the technical side of the game and stuff like that. Air dash and double jump are still there. That's the first thing that we see. Sorry, I'll move it so that the notification doesn't block it. Tension gauge is the same. Throw is now 4 or 6D, forward or backwards plus dust. And throws have whiff animations. This is true for air throws as well. This is fucking crazy. Guilty Gear having a throw whiff animation is the craziest shit in the world. It will also mean that a lot of the game's offense is probably structured around baiting throw whiffs. When a throw whiff exists, and it's not just a one button thing, it's big. To be honest with you, a lot of Guilty Gear is beating throw mashes anyway. It's just a different kind of throw mash. This is much more like standard other fighting games. It'll make it much more like other games, right? Throws are not one frame startup anymore, therefore loses the meaties. However, the startup is still fast and good for a bar. There's a dash button. I don't mind a dash button. I know some people might, but I don't mind a dash button. Weaker normals like 2P, only Gatling into command normals. That is so weird. I'm so super surprised about the Gatling changes, by the way. Punch and kick only can be Gatlinged into command normals and not into anything else. My question, can I Gatling into a command normal and out of a command normal into another button? So let's say I do 2P into, 6S. Can I go 2P, 6S, 5H? Kizzy said no. I see. That's a very weird change. I'm super surprised. This will make it so that a lot of the routes that you have for block strings and stuff are much more like this is what you do. 2P, 2P, 6H, Gunflame with Soul. This is you just do it. They definitely brought you right here. They went from here to right here with the amount of options you have with a block string and stuff. In this case, I wonder if the Gatling change is to prevent long block strings where you can just Gatling 2P, 2P, slash, whatever, all these buttons in a row, right? Slash, hard slash, Gunflame, and then build up a bunch of risk gauge. I'm not sure actually why they would do this change, if they're just trying to simplify how it works or what. But it might be as a response to make it so that you can't just crank the risk gauges easily. But I mean, that's what FD is for, right? Blocking mid dash is possible. Surprising. Without FD, that is very surprising. Grounded normals are air blocking without FD. Surprising. Again. When you hit the opponent with strong moves in the corner, there's a wall break stage transition. 2D hard knockdowns. Other knockdowns lead to an auto back tech wake up. That is very surprising. As surprising as hot beef, boy, delicious, dropping the 18 months. No air tech. Another humongous change that I did not expect. OTGs after 2D do not have proration. Deals a lot of damage. However, the knockback is big. So you do a knockdown and then you hit them away with whatever the OTG. Dead angle is gone. It is not in the game anymore, but Georgie is. Thanks very much. Gorgie, thanks very much. They do have a dead angle type move where you RC on block, and it's similar to an alpha counter. Finishing blows change some voice lines. Yeah, dust attacks and overhead knocks back pretty far horizontally. On counter hit, you get a combo, correct? Dust attack wall bounces when it hits the corner, which allows for a combo. So they made dust fast and hard to react to. That's one thing that they've tried to do. Dust is faster. Generally speaking, combos from overheads are not possible mid-screen. Some moves had a cinematic on counter hit. Chip damage exists, but chip kills do not. So there's a few changes back to back to back that really weaken FDs in my mind in a lot of ways, right? Which I think is as interesting as Witch Doctor Bob. So blocking mid-dash is possible without FD. So your movement is not restricted by you being smart with FDs so you can block while moving. Your movement in the air is not restricted with using FD so that you can block air attack. Chip kills are not there, so you don't need to be smart about your faultless defense to avoid chip kill situations. These changes right here, all three of them are big hits to the depth of being smart with your faultless defense in this game. The other thing is that instant blocking and faultless defense don't change the frame data of moves. Before, there was moves that would be plus, but if you IB them, they're negative or something, or they're 0. Or there's moves that are 0, and if you IB them, they're negative or punishable, or whatever, right? So they've changed that. So now the benefits of FD are definitely very different than what they were before. Same with IB. No stun, no stagger, no blitz, no danger time. Big. All those things gone. Wake up timing has been standardized. Advantage is different based on how you got the knockdown. Stylish mode that exists. When the risk gauge is above a certain amount, attacks are forced counter hits. FD prevents the risk gauge from going up. So that's what FD is for. Blocking in the air makes the risk gauge increase by a lot. Risk gauge management is an important point in this game. A lot of the game seems built around stacking risk gauge so that you can get big counter hit starters, because counter hits are the big way you get combos, right? Instant block does not decrease block stun, but gives meter. Corner combos are much more freeform than before. For example, with combos from regular throw, 2D horizontal dolphin. Wow, I didn't see that actually. 3 hits in the corner and the opponent is wall splatted. Another hit causes the wall break. Roman cancel uses 50% tension. It still cancels your current actions. It has a circular effect. If done while the opponent is in hit stun, it will be a red circle effect that has a hitbox. If the hitbox of the RC hits, it floats the opponent and slows them down. Yeah, we saw that a lot when we were watching the gameplay. If done while the opponent is not in hit stun, it has a blue circle effect. If the opponent is inside the effect, they slow down. When slowed down or hit by a guard cancel RC, the opponent will have a clock effect on them. When the clocked effect is on the opponent, the slowdown is active. Okay. So it has a big hitbox. It has a big circular hitbox. Guard cancel RC exists, and you can do it in the air. It blows the opponent far back and puts them in a special blowback state. The opponent can block while in this blowback state. Dead angle attack doesn't exist, so it's a simple replacement. So RCing while in block stun is a dead angle now. Instead of they just removed the dead angle and tied it to the RC. I think what's interesting to me is that a lot of these mechanics they're much bigger simplifications and changes to the game than I expected them to do. By removing all of these options, the amount of decisions that are there is so, like, there's a slow stranglehold coming in on the decisions. And the thing is, a game like Guilty Gear is fun because there is just a shit ton of things out there in the game to do. There's a lot of system mechanics that are really cool. There's a lot of shit about it that people are really, interested in. The game is complicated. FD has tons of different uses. IBs have tons of different uses. There's so many little moments in the game where stuff like how Rice dropped the lovely 4 months is very kind. Thanks very much. There's so many times in the game where you can make smart decisions about how you FD, about your meter usage on defense, about instant blocking things, about using your FD to avoid chip, there's so many different things like that. And it's all tied around these different things in the mechanics. To see them change all of them is just it bums me out. Everybody was so excited. They were really interested in the game. They were loving it. The music was kicking. The visuals were awesome. Everybody was pumped for this game. They thought it was going to be the fucking sickest thing ever. And the biggest bit of negative feedback was people finding out the game was being simplified. Look, you can make a game more simple in lots of smart ways. Making knockdown timings universal is a simplification to Guilty Gear that is not a huge blow to the game. I think hold the tech is a simplification of how the tech system works currently that you can do that feels great. I think replacing the dead angle and just tying it into the RC system, that to me doesn't seem like that bad of a change if you just make it a dead angle, but it's done with the RC buttons. No stagger, I completely don't mind. I think that's a fine change. No danger time, also, I think that's a fine change. No stun? Does this mean no stun? Like you can't get dizzied in the game? Oh, come on, bro. Why? Some of the counter hit zooms on moves, especially that knock down and stuff, I think are really cool. And I think they make big moment moves really cool. I feel like there are some examples of very smart standards, simplification in here. I think a few of them I like, and a few of them I don't. I don't like the idea of making Gatlings much worse. Only because it seems like the idea behind that Gatling choice is we're going to make all the strings like this. Within 2 to 3 months, everybody will have the string that they do all the time off of each button because you don't really have that many other options. My initial thoughts, and I haven't played it, so I don't know if this is true or not. A lot of the offensive in this game is going to be around run up, button. Do I throw you? Do I continue the string and try to fish for a counter hit? If that sounds familiar, it's going to feel a lot, I think, like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and like plenty of other fighting games out there that have the same exact style of offense. The other issue that I have, simplifying Guilty Gear is a decision that they've chosen to make. And I think that if they want to make that choice and do some smart simplifications, I think that's fine, right? But they had Dragon Ball, which is like a simplified fighting game, right, that they put out there. They took BB Tag and tried to simplify it from BlazBlue itself. They have Grand Blue Versus coming out in 2020. They're simplifying that game. They're making it a simple, easy to get into anime game. And they have Guilty Gear, and they're making another anime game that is simplified and easy to get into. And my question is like, why? You already have 3 other titles that you've tried to make a simplified fighting game. Why not just let Guilty Gear be the game where you just let players do what they want to do? It's like, cause money. I mean, dude, one of the most popular game right now in most fighting game communities is Tekken. Tekken is simplified from other Tekken versions, but still a pretty tough game to get into with a lot of little things to learn in their system and stuff. Dude, Tekken has no tutorial. Tekken has tons of shit you got to dig into and bite into before you even feel good about playing it. But at the same time, casuals love Tekken. And you know why? Because the game feels good to mash in. The game feels awesome to mash in. I think Tekken is one of the best games to mash in on the planet. And it's also one of those games that takes a lot of learning and effort to get good at a high level in. And I think Guilty Gear is a game that with a lot of the current changes, if they still kept it complicated, it would be beautiful and it would look fantastic. And people would want to play it because of those 2 reasons. Yeah, but the other thing is, right, I'll say this too. I have no idea how much of this is a good change or not a good change. I haven't played the game. I haven't tried it. I don't know how it feels. I don't know how it is with my hands on it. I don't know if I'll like it. I don't know if I'll hate it. I need to get my hands on it and play it. I'm not the kind of person that's like, no, Guilty Gear, no. Like, it's not that bad to me yet. I want to try it. They clearly want to change the game a lot. I worry about a game like Gear when all the stuff that you love about Guilty Gear and everything, right? The speed of it, the craziness of it, the creativity of it, is turned into, we really want the game to be very neutral heavy. Everything resets back to neutral. You don't get knocked down into Oki. You don't get like, that is something about gear that is always there. The idea that you get a hit and then after you get a hit, it just puts you back to neutral as your reward. The reward you get is the damage. To me, is awful. Fighting games, that's not how fighting games usually work. And I don't think it's how they should work. If you get hit, you got hit and you are now on defense and you deserve all the things that happen that now you are now on defense. That's how it works. Resetting back to neutral is horrible. I think it's so bad because now if the idea is there's no Oki, then you can't design characters that are weak and neutral, but when you win the neutral, you have strong pressure. The amount of designs that you have available to you become like, well, what are we going to do? If you get a hit, it always resets you back to neutral. Soul gets wild throw, he just slams you on the ground and now you're back to neutral. Potemkin gets a hit and now he lands a command throw and it puts you back to full screen and now it's like, oh well, he just got to spend the next 10 minutes trying to get in and I got to get in to think one stomp. Oh, I gotta look at that. Bob Shop, thanks very much for dropping the Twitch Prime. It was cut off there, so it was hard to tell. They want to remove all of the Oki and set play scenarios, right? Like all the hits just reset you, and when you hit the corner, like you have to be careful about not doing a stage transition or whatever. I want to see pressure. When someone gets a hit, they are rewarded for the hit by getting some kind of offense. And if the defender can defend against whatever they're thrown at them, then they are rewarded with being reset back to neutral. You don't need to reward the person who got hit by resetting them back to neutral. Yeah, and a lot of neutral, in particular in a game like this, there's a lot of degenerate, very powerful options. People only think that offense is extremely degenerate or something, right? But like, how many games have you played where some character just doesn't play neutral because they have some degenerate, powerful option that they can just do over and over and over? There's this weird obsession with fighting games that neutral is where champions win. That's like all people say about fighting games lately. Neutral, everything needs to be neutral heavy. Neutral is what's fun. Hell to the fuck to the no. Sometimes it's fun, but it's not fun all the time for all players. Some players love getting a hit and running offense. Some players love running for their lives and not even engaging in the middle of the screen. Who gives a fuck about neutral? I'm full screen throwing projectiles. I don't give a fuck about what you're doing over there. I'm not going to play on the ground with you. Or who gives a fuck about your neutral? I'm going to run headfirst at you. And eventually I will hit you. And when I do hit you, you will explode. Some people like playing slow, defensive neutral. But that is not the pinnacle of fighting games. That's what I like doing, right? I'm a dude who likes just walking around and playing nice and slow and neutral. That's me. But please don't make every game for me. Please fucking don't, because everybody will be bored out of their minds. Please make it so that when I fuck up and I try to anti-air and this guy commits to a dive kick, I die. Please make it so that I just fucking explode and die, because I fucked up. It's my fault. So that next time I wait, he dive kicks and I fucking uppercut the shit out of him and I feel like a genius. I don't give a shit about just playing slow defensive neutral. If I fuck up, kill me. I want that player to have a reward for hitting me and getting in and making offense, and then make me defend so that when I defend and I escape, I feel good about my defense, right? If I don't feel that, then what's the point? You need powerful options in all of those moments. And I think when you start to reset the neutral all the time, you start to lose me. I don't know. I'm worried. It seems like a lot of the mechanics that took a lot of really smart strategic thinking and understanding of the games are being simplified in a way that I don't love. Being able to air block everything without spending FD seems so strange. Does that mean you can just jump everywhere? Potemkin's air grab is air blockable? Dude, everybody's just going to be jumping like crazy. So how fun is the neutral going to be when you can't punish anybody for jumping at you? You can't force them to FD or anything, right? There's two things to remember. One is that there's an open call from Arxis for feedback, right? They're saying, hey man, look, we're not sure about any of this. Give us feedback about what you think about the changes. And two, almost none of us have played this game yet. So I think the only things that I can be very, very critical on are changes like the UI decisions and stuff. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Peppery Splash, he's a GG player, says the new GG looks okay. I'm not sure if it still has all the things that I like Exerd for. The pacing is really different, and there's definitely a hit to the freedom of choice you have. Just gonna have to wait until the finals to see whether I like it or not. This game is very different. It's a very different game. It's like a redesign of how they see Guilty Gear. And whether that's for you or not is something you have to decide. I'm sure there are people who have never played Guilty Gear who are interested in this Guilty Gear. And I'm sure there are people who have played lots of Guilty Gear that are not interested in this Guilty Gear. You know what I mean? So where we end up with it is going to be very interesting. There's a lot of changes that I've really like instantly. I'm like, oh, hold on. But I will have to wait and see. I'll have to wait and give it a try. I mean, think about it like this. When current Guilty Gear players talked about Rev 2, they fucking talk a lot of shit. These motherfuckers are like, Arxis did the worst job ever balancing this game. Rev 2 is trash. It's in such a bad spot. The balance is crazy. This game's all over the place, etc. And then the new one comes out, and they're like, this fucking game looks trash. So it's like, I mean, LOL, who says that? All the people who play it. Every event that I'm at, when a player loses in Rev, they talk a lot of shit. No, they don't. A lot of people talk shit on Rev 2. It is not a super well-liked game. It's definitely a love-hate relationship. Yeah. Like most of the players you see in top 8s or around tournaments and stuff for the game talk a lot of shit on Rev 2. It's not an uncommon, sentiment. People did not like a lot of the changes about Rev 2. However, that's not like a sign of how good or bad the game is, right? I don't know. And I'm honestly, as my early feelings about it will hold much less weight than the people who get to try the game next weekend. A lot of people talk shit about Dragon Ball being a very simplified game, but I think Dragon Ball has a lot of strong defensive options, in particular, especially this version. There's a lot of defensive option selects to get you out of situations. There's a lot of meat there when you get deep into it. But then this is scaring me a little bit. What if Dragon Ball is more complex than the new Guilty Gear? Why play GG when KOF will do this kind of neutral but better? How do you know what KOF's going to play like? Short, Rekka, no max mode in the next KOF? Who knows? You say that now. You don't know what the new KOF will play like, do you? Run up, short hop or not, bait the throw, eat the throw. We don't know a lot of this shit, right? None of you guys know. I don't want anybody to get too crazy until they try the game. The only people in the chat who've tried the game is Ringe, Zobbuster, Kizzy when he was here earlier, and Octo. That we know about. What's funny is that like I had seen none of the changes, and I saw like 3 people tweet me and say, Sajam, this is your fault. You probably will love these changes. Because I said that there's ways to simplify the games that's smart, but not that bad if they did it like this. And then they did it much worse. There's people who just quote me, and none of it is ever accurate at all. I wanted one change. I wanted there to still be FD, how it works, IBs, teching, knockdown situations being good, Oki being strong. That's all I wanted. You guys know that I mentioned that the cool thing about Guilty Gear is that even with slight simplifications, it could still be a very diverse game because the combos are big. You have RC to extend things. The movement's great. You have air combos. Remember all those things that I said that would be in the game? I'm sorry. I didn't foresee this. I also have to apologize. A lot of people were saying stuff like, hey, Sajam, I'm interested in the new Guilty Gear. How do I learn? And I was like, dude, just play Rev 2. I'm sure that Rev 2 won't be that different. It won't be that different to the new Guilty Gear. Just pick up Rev 2. I'm sure that you guys will play it and it'll be fun. The idea to show people the game early like this is a great idea. And I think that if you're going to do it, you really need to do it in a way that kind of urges people's fears to relax. Because you have to remember when people see changes, they're going to freak out. When KI used to stream their balance patch, right? And it's always the same thing. They would show the balance patch and say, hey, we made this move from +5 to +4. And they'd be like, he's bottom tier. He's the worst character in the game. Unbelievable. And then they'd be like, hey, so we made this move do 20 damage and now 30 damage. They're like, fuck, he's the best character in the game. Why would they change that? He's the best character in the game. Even if you're very careful about being like, hey, these are small changes and I think it's going to be okay, people will freak out. So I think that you have to be very careful in a reveal like this, an announcement, and you have to be very like early and concise with your info. As concise as Midnight Light, who dropped the big tier 1 sub. Thanks very much. So you have to be very careful with the changes you make, in particular to a game like Guilty Gear, where a lot of the appeal is the speed, the combos, how smart and creative you can be. I mean, when you think about Guilty Gear and you think about all the stuff you love about it, it's like the music, how the game looks, the really, really tight things that players do that you're like, wow, that's incredible. How the fuck did Nage throw that? Know it was going to combo right there, still combo off the bomb, jump FD in the air to block the fucking bomb that he threw, and then still combo off of it? Like, that is so fucking tight. Everybody's favorite moments in fighting games when they watch are the interesting, really smart decisions that players have to make in the match that you see as a player and you're like, oh my God, I'm not smart enough, dexterous enough, fast enough to do that decision, but a man out there can do it. And that right there should tell you, if a human being out there can do this sick shit, I can learn how to do it, and I'll get there. So those moments are still very important to the player, and the less of them you have, the harder it is for people to get excited about stuff, I think. A lot of people are worried, and I think you should be worried, but you should keep your eye on next weekend and watch the gameplay, and then think about it after that. I'll definitely be watching the gameplay and thinking about some of the stuff that I like. Boomer is a slur. I wish I could roll my eyes harder.